This is an interview with Rich Roth, who has been in the business of security in various forms for about 40 years plus. He's worked all over the world, principally in border security, aviation, and cybersecurity. Those are his areas of expertise. Widely recognized. He lectures, he teaches. He's an author. He wrote one book called How to Be Your Own Bodyguard. He's doing another book now. He's done films, and he's highly, highly respected as one of the best in his areas. Today we're going to talk about the Rio Grande Valley. And in that respect, we're going to ask him initially to describe where it is and what's going on, particularly with respect to immigration.
How you doing?
Great.
Rio Grande Valley. Rio Grande Valley right now has got a difficult time. We're seeing more people coming over the border than we ever have. We can blame, if you want to put blame, we can blame some of it on the new administration, who has really announced that it was an open border, but it's been going on for years. Just not at this level. We're at a higher level than we've ever seen. But the interesting thing about it is that they're making so much money off of the people now that drugs is almost a secondary thing for them. It's still a big profit maker, but they're making so much money off of people that drugs are really their secondary. But it also comes into another area. The kidnapping of people in the Texas area or even in Mexico have really gone down a bit because they're all making money off of the thing, and it takes a lot less work to just ship somebody over the border and go from there. Now there's a new type of kidnapping that's coming up more and more. That new type of kidnapping is where they have all these people coming through, and they sort of take their pick of the litter. This young man or young girl looks like they could do something with him, has no attachment, nobody's going to miss her, so they're not going to be screaming to the State Department or some other government official. They'll take that child and they'll use them in sex slavery in Mexico before they release them to the north, and then they still may use them in sex slavery. So, but they have their pick of the thing. The girls coming through, they pick just the best ones to turn into prostitutes because those are the ones that are going to make the most money for them. But it's just sort of a ongoing thing coming through there, and then they just get their pick of the litter.
Let's talk about McAllen and Mission. What impact has the very permissive practice been in the local communities like McAllen and Mission?
At the border itself?
Yes.
Well, really our governor, Governor Abbott, has at this point tried to slow this whole thing down by flooding the breach with policemen. Mainly, in our case, people that are public safety folks, and they come all over Texas, and they're staying in hotels all around the valley, and they're the ones trying to supplant the Border Patrol where they can't be in every case. Well, that's one of them. Added to that, he reached out and said, can anybody else help us? Well, Florida sent people, Tennessee has sent people, so now there's other entities down there, and they're the ones that are helping us try to stop this flow. The problem you have is, and a lot of people look on TV and say, well, they're still flowing. Well, if the border fence is up and the guys all come and sit next to the fence at night, what happens the next morning, the Border Patrol comes down and unlocks the gate and just lets them through and takes their name maybe, but takes them through. And once they let them through, they're under federal government custody and they cannot be touched by the troops until they've been released out into society. And then they have to do something wrong, because they aren't violating anything if the Border Patrol let them through. And under the new administration, the Border Patrol is letting them all through.
So we don't respect our own sovereignty.
Not at all.
So if you don't have border control, you don't have a nation.
We do not have border control right now.
It's hard to understand a policy that is permissive when you look at the implications with respect to kidnapping, drugs, infectious diseases, COVID, prostitution, child slavery. Why isn't this being mitigated?
There's and I can't read the minds of the people that are letting it happen, but there's an overwhelming thing of saying if we can get them in, and we can get them into the part where they're going to become U.S. citizens, they'll be able to vote. and they're going to owe that all to the Biden administration. So there's a lot of people look at it as that's being the reason. Uh, if you talk to some of the other congressmen and such, they're going to say that we need all the immigrants we can get, which is not true all the time, but sometimes during the picking days or picking times, it is good to have these people come over and pick crops and such, and then go back. And that's what they used to do. Now they just come over and stay there. There's two types of the immigrants coming over the border. There's the ones that as soon as they come over, and kids, little kids, they'll have a photograph. In fact, it'll be like a 3x5 card, and it's got the logo of the Border Patrol. And the little kids are told, go straight up to this Border Patrol. They'll take care of you from there, and then you'll be safe, right? And then there's the ones that we call the getaways. Well, anybody that's been over the border in the past, when they approach the border now, they have to run for it, because if they get picked by the border, they get sent directly back across. For 5 years, they can't even try to get citizenship. They come up to the border, they're just sent right back. So the getaways, and there's quite a few of them. Some people put estimates at 200,000 next to the 1 million that we've already got coming through that we know about, and it could be a lot higher. It could be 400,000, because they're flowing so many people into us. The Border Patrol that used to be out there looking at all these areas of guys would come through and try to infiltrate into the United States. There's so many of them have to handle the kids and the people coming through the not getaways that a lot of these people are just getting away. The other part of it is those getaway folks are the ones that usually carry drugs. So part of their payment to the cartel is the payment they make, plus they have to carry a load of drugs in. So all those getaways know that they need to get as far as they can into the United States, and then they'll get picked up and shipped from there, but the drugs will be taken off of them at that point.
Would you explain the role of the coyotes?
A coyote is basically a person that's a handler. In some cases, a coyote does nothing but handle people. So for instance, if you go to different areas, they'll actually have buses come up in Reynosa. They'll have a bus come up to a hotel that is pretty much run by the cartel, and they'll load all these people on, and most of those people have paid a goodly sum to be taken across the border.
For example, how much?
Between the lowest you'll see is 300, the highest you'll see is about 8,000. So people from Asia usually are paying the higher numbers. People from Reynosa are paying the 300. And all they're doing there is just getting them across the river. So they get to the buses, then the buses come down and drop them off in different areas along the river. And then they swim or take rafts across the river. One of the ones that we see, and I saw it myself in McAllen, our mission area, is they take the guy will take the 2 rafts full of kids, and they're cheap rafts, the ones you'd buy at Walmart, like you'd use in your swimming pool. But they're big ones, and they take two of those filled with kids, and he'll walk out as far as he can into the river, and then when he can't walk anymore, he'll maybe take a couple scissor strokes to get himself another, but then he pushes the rafts till they run and they bounce against the thing. Well, once they bounce against our soil and they touch our soil, they're our problem at that point. And that's what they know. So this coyote will not even approach the U.S. himself. He'll just come very close and push the rafts over. The kids will all bound out, and they've got their little cards, and the first thing they're looking for is those stripes of the Border Patrol, and to turn themselves in. But that happens a lot. If you look along the river, you'll see dead rafts, what we call them. Rafts that, they've sprung a leak or whatever when they bounced into the shore. There's dead rafts up and down the river where these guys came across.
How many people do you think die annually because of exposure?
Oh, it's a number that we don't know, because most of the ones that die are the getaways. And the ones that are getaways are the ones that are running like hell to get it through, and then they get lost in the brambles and the bush and the desert that starts about 10 miles up from where the river is. And that's a pretty hard desert area. And a person can die out there very easily. If they come through Arizona, they'll die coming through across that desert area too. So it's an area to bring them through, but it's also a very dangerous one. And since they're the getaways, we don't have as much control of the numbers. We have to sort of guess the numbers. We look at our video and look at it and say, that was 30 guys right there that just ran for it, and we didn't catch them.
Let's talk about tunnels. When we lectured at Georgetown about, 70 years ago, something like that?
Yes, sir.
I pointed out there were 74 tunnels along the border, mainly in California and Arizona.
Right.
What's the strategy to get rid of those tunnels, and what's the state of the art with respect to technology?
Well, it's kind of fun because El Chapo was the guy that really started the tunnel traffic.
Right.
And he's the one that really pressed the tunnels into existence. And at first they were just tunnels that you could crawl through or walk through, and they went under the bridge or under the border crossing, and then you popped up in a house or garage on the other side. Chapo made them a little bit more sophisticated. Some of his tunnels will go a quarter of a mile, half of a mile. One or two of them have gone a mile, where they'll actually come from inside a little. You'll go to a house in Mexico, they'll drop you down into the tunnel, and then they'll either have tunnel trucks or you walk for a mile, and then you pop up in a garage somewhere in the United States. It's kind of interesting. They're not in the desert areas like Arizona. They're not that hard to find. They can be difficult, but they're not that hard to find. We have technology that can do that. Where we can't do it is places where there's a lot of other tunnels, and there are a lot of tunnels in the world, like sewer lines and sewer drains and other stuff running around. So in a city area, it can be extremely difficult to find those tunnels.
Now, you worked in Israel to deal with the Israelis and the Palestinians,
Yes.
and also with tunnels and border security.
And I briefed their upper management, mainly their IDF, the defense forces. I briefed them on ways the United States have been trying to find tunnels. What they've done, the United States took a unique approach. They went to the mining companies and they said, well, how do you find miners that are trapped in tunnels that we don't know exactly where they're at? And they came up with some technology from there, looking at the gradients of the earth, the magnetic lines in the earth. They'll look at that and they'll look for different flux changes. And that's how they'll find a lot of these tunnels. Well, Israel has got a version of that they're trying to do now. But there's also another one we did, and that is where we buried cables in the ground, fiber optic cable. And as they come up or come under it, we can detect them coming through those areas. The problem in the area of Palestine, not the West Bank, the Palestine, is you're coming through sand. And so sand, when you're digging in sand, doesn't make as much noise. You don't see tunnels coming out of the West Bank very much because the West Bank's built up on rocky soil up there. So you have to actually beat down into the rock to get a tunnel. You don't see a lot of tunnels up there. But down in Palestine, along that 19 miles or whatever you see there, those have got lots of tunnels in them. Some are fairly sophisticated. In fact, they'll order tunnel supplies and say that they're building another sewage system or a drainage system, and they'll actually use those pieces of cement that they get that are pre-molded for a tunnel type thing. They'll use those in tunnels. One of the last tunnels I found coming out of and I just say I found because it was the last one I found before I left, was used a sewer tunnel, a drainage tunnel that was already down there. They used that, and then they branched off of it. Once they got as close as they could to the border, they branched off of it and actually came up very close to one of the IDF compounds. Now, that's worrisome because the tunnelers in the past have used those to actually blow up the IDF compounds and then run a lot of people through it. In these cases nowadays, they're just running people through them as much as possible.
What I find to be reprehensible is that we have a homeless population that includes about 40,000 veterans. The people that are being processed coming north from Mexico are provided with better facilities
Much better.
than our homeless veterans.
Much better. We're
How
spending
do-
more money on them.
Right. Isn't that unconscionable?
It is. It is, considering what we do for these people. And they are not, I'm a big believer in put the citizens first.
Sure.
And then we'll look after others. And we've always done that. Our country has always looked after the others. But putting your citizens first is key, especially in this critical time of the COVID. We
Right.
want to make sure all those people, and all we had these people coming back from the sandbox, from the different wars over there.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of these veterans that are coming back that have PTSD and don't even
Right.
recognize they need a home.
Right.
They're just looking someplace that's calm and quiet, and they try to find it out on the street in many cases.
That's incredible.
It is. It's a shame, really, that we have that kind of.
What advice would you have to any government, any administration, to mitigate the border control issue?
We need to actually just firmly get in place, and we have the law. That's what's funny about the whole thing. We have the law that says if you're illegally here, then we're going to ship you back.
Right. Why don't we use that?
Because we have also in our laws a thing called, we can go for amnesty. In other words, it comes over and they say, in my country, I am persecuted because I'm black or brown, or I'm not of the right caste, or I just don't have enough money. So I'm persecuted. So what they do is they use that, and the government in our laws, actually says that if a person is fleeing a bad situation, we will do everything we can to help them. Well, the problem you have is all those people coming at you, they're all saying we're fleeing, and you have to adjudicate all those. And our adjudications have gotten more and more difficult over the years. So now we have I think it's over a million people backlogged that are waiting for adjudication of these judges. Well, once they can't be adjudicated, you can't hold a million people right there. So they give them not a green card, but they let them come into the United States and function the best they can until we can get them out of there. Well, most of them know they're not going to get out of there. We're not going to come for them. And if they go to a sanctuary city area, we can't touch them in those cases.
Anything to say in closing?
Um, Talking about the video we were doing, this thing was based off of.
Right.
We met with a lot of young ladies, mostly young ladies, a couple guys, that were taken by the cartels.
Right.
The cartels are taking them on both sides of the border.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they come to the United States and then take them back over, which is what they'd like to do. But usually they'll take them, bring them inside the United States even further, and wait till things calm down, and then they'll run them across the border. Well, that's still going on. But now it's not more of them going and taking a school kid from a junior college or something, as a couple of the people we interviewed were. They'll just take migrants coming across, and they'll put them into slavery. And it's not just the women into prostitution. If they need a farm, laborers for a farm, they'll take these guys and make them laborers for a farm in Mexico. And the best they'll get is maybe the food they need and a place to lay their head. But if they get into the United States, it's the same case. They turn into basically slaves over here. And we just allowing it to happen because we're letting so many of them through. I think that this video, in its process of looking at the kidnapping, is very needed. If you remember when we did this lecture, and we showed the premise of this video to a college crew, when we did this lecture down there, everybody was ecstatic. And in the end, we had everybody saying, well, we're going to be more aware when we go out there.
Right.
Well, that's the kind of thing that's necessary, and that's what I hope this video is going to bring.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for your service with the Secret Service, and thank you for your diligence and activities in the Rio Grande Valley.
It's been an honor, and it's always been an honor to work with you.
Well, you're the best. Again, I want to thank Rich Roth for his participation. He is really a respected professional in the business of border security, cyber security, and training, as well as airport security. And we're very privileged to have his participation. For those of you that are interested, I commend your attention respectfully to The Exceptionals. It's www.theexceptionals.net to see our website, and Mr. Roth will be featured in one of our segments going forward. Thank you again for your attention.